Hey, Second Students, welcome to Merge. So glad that you made it here tonight. I'm excited to end this series. It's a little bit sad because I hate when things come to an end. But tonight we're going to see Joseph's story and our application of that story end in a really good spot. And so I'm excited about that, and I'm hoping that God will use this time and use whoever it is that's watching this to be greater impact for his kingdom because of the applications we make today. And so allow me right now to pray for you and pray for me as we enter into this time of hearing God's word and hopefully be changed by it. All right, so pray with me. God, thank you so much for tonight. I thank you for the people watching, for the students, God, whose lives are going to be impacted by what we discover tonight. And so, God, in whatever context, wherever it is that we're listening from, God, I ask that you would use this ending of Joseph's story to impact your kingdom in a great way, to change us for our good and your glory. God, that we would be able to be peacemakers, that we would not live for revenge in mind, but that we would choose to seek peace as you ask us to seek peace. So God, help us to do that tonight. God, change us by your Spirit through your word. God, we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
So when I was in high school, my friends and I really loved going to this place called Brahms. We loved to hang out there, and it was kind of our spot. Now, y'all don't have that here, and that's okay. I only have it every time I go to Dallas. But Brahms would be like if you mixed the idea of Sonic and Dairy Queen, kind of, and added the best crinkle cut fries you've ever had in your life, and if you added like a ice cream bar to the mix. It was awesome, the best chocolate shakes, and I'm not talking that imitation junk with vanilla ice cream and chocolate syrup. Chocolate ice cream made chocolate shakes. They're the best. But anyway, so I remember this one time where I forgot to bring money when me and my friends were going to hang out at Brahms. And so my student pastor at the time, his name's Randy Green, he said these words that we all love to hear when we hear them. Most of the time it's from our grandmothers. Hey, get whatever you want. It's okay. It's on me. And I loved it, man. That was such good news for me. I told him, man, thank you so much, Randy. I'll pay you back, okay? And he says, obviously, hey, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I got you. And I remember that to this day. I was an irresponsible teenager. And Randy was a grown-up with a grown-up job, and he was able to cover it. It wasn't an impact to him at all. But he just didn't want me to miss out on hanging out with my friends because I didn't have money. But here's the deal. Not asking to be paid back for something like money for fast food is really heartwarming and doesn't mean a whole big deal to a lot of people. But other times, payback can get pretty complicated. Payback not only comes up when people help us, but it also comes up when people hurt us. Here's a few examples. Man, when someone, especially someone you love or like or who's your friend, talks about you behind your back, you want payback. Or maybe your group of friends or a friend doesn't invite you to hang out with everybody else. They kind of leave you hanging even though they know you're not doing anything. And you want payback. This often happens with people that we like or don't like or that we're dating or not dating. Like, we want payback in significant ways sometimes. And so maybe we don't always go like horror movie or write a song like Taylor Swift, but on some level, we want some payback. We want them to hurt how we've been hurt. We want them to be embarrassed how we've been embarrassed. And I feel like that, isn't it true that the closer we are to a person, the more we want payback? The people who are closest to us, the people who know us the best, those are the ones that it hurts from the worst. So they're most likely to be on our payback list in really significant ways. For most of us, payback comes in the three major forms. The first one, and most obvious one, is public payback. This is when we do to them what they did to us in an obvious outward way. We talk bad about them because they talk bad about us. We clap back really loudly. Or we roast them and we throw like a little sarcastic phrase at the end like, just kidding. The second one, and way harder to see, is passive payback. This is way more subtle. We make comments that aren't obviously hurtful, but that are meant to hurt underneath what we say. We put a subtle post on social media, or we don't text them back, or we roll our eyes whenever they're talking, just enough to where they won't actively see that we're trying to hurt them. And then the last one, and probably the one that I am best at, is imaginary payback. Imaginary payback happens when we have an argument in our mind and we absolutely destroy them. We have all the best arguments, all the best comebacks, and we annihilate the other person. But the reality is that we don't actually do anything. And then there's perhaps the best feeling of all in those revenge moments, but that isn't actually payback. We enjoy seeing them fail. In these moments, it feels almost like justice. And we inject these ridiculous words or concepts like karma. It feels good to see what we think is coming to them come to them. And there's a moment in Joseph's life that is just like this. That is where we're going to end his story tonight. So in this series, we've been taking a journey through this life of Joseph. It's found in the book of Genesis, and his story, in the lightest of terms, is wild and crazy. And so if you haven't been walking down this road with us, I'd encourage you to stop here, go back and rewatch the previous merge services in this series. If you don't have time, or you just don't want to, or you're honestly too lazy, let me do my best to catch you up very, very quickly. Early in this series, we talked about how Joseph was the favorite kid of this guy named Jacob, and all of his brothers knew it. And Joseph wasn't too tactful about it. He kind of rubbed it in their faces. Even, I'll give him a little bit of benefit if it was just telling them his dreams, which talked about him being higher than them one day. So they hated him. And then, since Joseph was really annoying to them, his brothers plotted to kill him. And that kind of escalated really quickly. But instead of outright killing him, they decided, hey, let's make some money off of this. And they sold him as a slave. And the rest of the story goes like this. Joseph was a slave in Egypt. Joseph was a slave in prison in Egypt. And then in a weird twist, Joseph is set free because he interprets some dreams for Pharaoh, who was the leader of all of Egypt. Joseph was eventually placed in charge of all of Egypt, second in command only to Pharaoh. And that is not a bad ending for a guy who was a hated brother, thought to be killed, sold as a slave. But what happens next is a major, major plot twist. After Joseph was second in command, there was a food shortage in all the land, including where his family lived. So Joseph's dad, Jacob, sent his other brothers into Egypt to beg for food because otherwise they were going to starve to death. And remember, Joseph's family, all of them thought that he was dead, and they had every reason to believe that he was. And so the last person they expected to see in Egypt was Joseph. But when they arrived and saw Joseph, not knowing that it was him, a huge drama unfolded before our eyes. And so this story is pretty massive. It goes from Genesis 42 through 50. And so I'd encourage you, if you have time, I'd encourage you to make the time, read this entire exchange because it's really, really impactful. But for tonight, I want us to pick up in the middle of that in Genesis 45, starting in verse 1. Read with me. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Imagine the tension in this moment. So much emotion that Joseph was face to face with his brothers who tried to have him killed. His own brothers who sold him into slavery, and now they're ironically asking for his help. This was a perfect get what you've got coming to you moment. Everything had been set up for Joseph. Payback was dropped right in his lap. And I think this is a great reflective moment to stop for all of us. What would you do? What would you do in this moment? The people or person that has hurt you the worst is before you, and you have all the power to do anything you want to them. You can hurt them the way that they hurt you. He could have sold them into slavery. He could have denied them food. He could have had them killed on the spot. If I had to answer for myself, I honestly don't know what I would do. I would hope my response is something like Joseph here in a second, but I'm scared that my inner sinful nature would take over and I would want revenge. As the story continues, Joseph asks his brothers to come closer to him. And so you can imagine the terror that is on their faces, that they're trembling. But then Joseph says this in verse 4. "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land. And for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and no reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Now, there's only one reason that Joseph could have this response the way that he did. He didn't try to get payback because he had already let go of revenge. Joseph had already done the hard work of forgiveness. When he says, "Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here," he was acknowledging their wrong. He was acknowledging his hurt, but without creating more hurt. Joseph chose forgiveness over payback. And we see that in the moment where he had the greatest opportunity for revenge. Joseph went on to tell his brothers to go get their father and move their entire family to Egypt so that he could take care of them. And then this happened in verse 15. "And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And afterward, his brothers talked with him." There is one thing that is greater than payback. It's a big word, and we'll unpack it here in just a second. It's called reconciliation. This is where we see God do the impossible in a relationship. He makes peace. when there has only been hurt. All because of forgiveness. Here's our main idea for today. When you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. Pursue peace instead of payback. And listen, here's why this can be complicated. Because what's happened to you is not exactly what happened to Joseph. In fact, I could tell a dozen different stories in a dozen different ways, and none of those would be exactly like what you or I are going through. You may be asking really good, honest questions. Like, hey, what if the circumstance that I'm in is really toxic? Or what if I am the one who has done the hurting? Each of us have unique and complicated situations, and figuring out what to do and pursuing peace is never easy. But that's why having other Christians around yourself is vital for seeking out peace. When you talk about what this looks like for you, you need to talk about it in your real life, with your real friends, and with your real family. So as we close, I want you to think about the power that you have when it comes to pursuing peace. What do you need to decide? What do you need to forgive? What offense do you need to bring to God? How can He do incredible things in your story that you haven't even imagined yet? Because when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. Pursue peace instead of payback. Pray with me. God, thank you for your word and this closing story that we get to look at from Joseph in his life and with his family. God, thank you for this awesome picture of reconciliation, of making peace. That God, that is so much better than our sinful desire to bring about equal consequence, to bring about revenge, to make sure we give to them what they gave to us. God, getting even, getting equal with somebody is not our goal as Christians who believe in you and walk with your Son, Jesus. So God, help us, empower us, even now as we move into musical worship, that you would help us to use this in our lives, that we would be able to glorify you through musical worship here in a second, because we know that your way of reconciliation and peace is better than our way of waging war and getting even. So God, help us do this right now, today, tonight, tomorrow, as we move forward from here. And we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.